Do you think pro arm wrestlers would be good in your sport?
Actually, yeah. I think I think they were taking a jab at me one day when I had sent them a message over Instagram. They were like, yeah, whatever we were talking about. And they were like, yeah, you should try professional arm wrestling next. I didn't know if they were being funny or if
Right.
they legitimately meant it or not. So I just kind of left that there. But I think that the stage setup would be similar because they're used to competing up there with a table in between them. They have stances and techniques that they could, use and figure out from being up there. And they're just naturally strong because it's all that upper body and torso cranking.
Yeah.
I definitely, I feel like they would do better than most people who come in from boxing and MMA, more so because of the feet, the stepping violations that people get because they're so used to pivoting their feet from throwing punches
Right.
that when they go to throw a strike, they end up lifting or pivoting and getting a DQ if it's a knockout or losing a point throughout their fight.
But it's funny you say that about, the pivoting and, obviously you're talking about the ostrich skin and keeping your feet planted so they don't skid. That's one thing, especially, well, obviously within power slap, that I think that I would change. Not the pivoting, because obviously I understand why you're not really trying to fucking kill anybody out there. Um, but in terms of, like, you take this Sheena, her fight where she, got knocked out, and the refs and the commentators, everybody was like, "It's a knockout! It's a knockout!" Nobody stopped to question the DQ first, so nobody stopped to review the tape. Everybody went explosive, and I watch it from a point of view of, okay, but these referees, talking, especially, you and every competitor out there, your life is in your hands, but your life is, you're pretty much passing the torch to them to see these fucking mistakes to keep the eye on it. So I think if I, as an outsider looking in, I think if I was to change one thing, or I could have an influence to change one thing about your sport, it would be the referees be a little bit more knowledgeable going out there. I don't, I don't know what the training is like to be a ref. Maybe maybe I'm talking out of school here. Just from an outsider looking in, I see some of the fights here that, they'll call something that I would be like, oh, that's bludgeoning. That's, that's definitely a cheap shot. That's in the eye. Oh no, and they're going, no, that's a solid hit. And I just think with with the tape, I mean, if it's the NFL, you've got five people all, weighing their opinion. With you guys, it's like they seem to make these calls on the blink of a dime.
It's some of them definitely seem that way, and I understand exactly what you're saying. I know for a fact that they are going over the instant replays. So if the referees don't get a call up there,
Okay.
it automatically goes back to the commission sitting at the table. They replay it, and if they see an issue that the referees have not called yet, they'll set up a light. It's flashing. They know to pause the fight, and then referees will go over, find out what the issue is, the call, and so on and so forth to continue the fight. Um, I think a lot of it, like you're saying, is everything is so new. So like the training is, we're figuring out what the training to even be is right now because it's
True.
still such a, we're going into Power Slap 8 in June now, I believe. So, it's only 8 events deep. So you got to think by the eighth UFC, they might have still been punching each other in the nuts and
Oh, absolutely.
and throwing crazy elbows and stuff like that. So, for as easy as it is to say these calls should be made or shouldn't be made, it's still a learning process for all parties involved. And I think that's the hard part that everyone has to deal with. People who get the calls, people who get the calls or don't get the calls. It's really hard to go back and be like, hey, so what do we do now? It's the learning process and the learning curve is tightening up as we speak. I know they're going from the last event, they're going over stuff and trying to tighten up even more. So every single event they're tweaking here, tightening there. We have rules meetings before every event so that way we are if we have questions for the referees, we can talk to them, because they have a list already of who our referees will be. So you will talk to your specific referee,
That's cool.
not just a referee, and hope they get the message passed along. If there is an issue, the matchmaker or the power slap president will come down and, talk to someone in the back if the referees have a concern that they, notice something in passing, or they have a concern with the conversation. So it's a lot more tight knit than I think people really understand, but also we just unfortunately have to give the leeway at this time for the learning curve of all of it in general,
And the growth. Absolutely. Absolutely. I like that. That's good. Because the viewer at home, sometimes you're going, and obviously we have a better view than just about anybody because we're looking at it, we're looking at the feet, we're looking at the pivot, we have all these different angles. Sometimes you just feel, and I shouldn't classify it or generalize as every referee. It just seems like when you go in there, some guys are like looking and they're really looking for the answer from someone else. And it's like, that's not what you want to see.